My name is Wije. They call me Wije because my last name is 14 letters long and most people can't pronounce it. So it's easier to just take the first four letters. So it's Wije. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aliya.
So what inspired you to get into the technology field?
Um, because it's a really short story. The best and the brightest were going to Silicon Valley. See, I spent the first half of my career in the hedge fund industry. And when I came into the hedge fund industry, the best and the brightest were going to the hedge fund industry. And interesting thing happened sort of in the 2000s after the great sort of whatever they call it. They got so many damn names for it.
Right.
A lot of the really smart people were going to Silicon Valley, and I felt that I had to be there. And my journey really started with I didn't know anyone. I went there and literally parked myself at the old Mandarin Hotel, and every Wednesday night for a couple of nights a month, I would host a dinner. And initially, only a few people came. And they were always the younger folks within these startups. And then, it was consistently became 15, 20 people. And so I built a network from the bottom up, and it got me into some interesting investments. One of my first investments was in SoFi, and I sat on the board of SoFi for many, many years. This was back in 2012. My partner and I made an investment in Palantir around the same time. And so it was, I needed to learn. I get bored very easily.
But those are two big things with technology and hedge funds. So how important is it for finance and technology to go together?
I think a lot of it has to do with, for me, finance and technology are very intimately linked because you need the capital to go out and do this. But the linkage for me is really intellectual curiosity. If you look at the people that have been really successful in the hedge fund industry, they've been super brilliant people. They could have done anything. And the same is true of the technologists that you are familiar with right now. They could have done anything. I mean, they just happened to choose a certain field. I mean, Peter Thiel is a great example of it. Peter Thiel was first involved in technology-driven thinking. Then he actually started a hedge fund. And most people forget that. Admittedly, it wasn't a huge success, but you can see the intellectual curiosity of and the critical thinking, and I think this sort of it's a passion to do something that other people aren't doing, and they are linked. They're absolutely linked. And I think we're seeing it right now.
Yeah. With being linked, what is it like using AI in your app?
We're slightly different because we started our company 10 years ago, being in sort of the R&D development. These things don't happen overnight,
Right.
a lot of people forget that it takes, years and years of training and a lot of data and a lot of money to build these things. And I always tell people, that if you look at Palantir, you get a pretty good history, pretty good grounding in what it takes to do something different. And they are the epitome of a company that had a vision, but you can't just call it AI because they are an intelligence layer, right? Um, I look at them and I go, that's operational intelligence. They basically taken all this data and figured out how to make intelligence out of it and then spew it out to the right people. So they started with the CIA. And I don't mean to talk about Palantir, but it's a good way of thinking about it. Um, the analyst that is credited with tracking down bin Laden probably had some input coming from the Palantir systems. I'm not saying anything new. This has been documented. So we're kind of trying something very similar. Well, we're doing something very similar. We're not trying it. We've actually done it, which is getting inside a bank, taking all of their data, cleaning it and putting it into the right taxonomy and driving intelligence from it. That has really two effects. One, you can make better decisions. And number two, you can actually streamline your operations, right? So you can have an entire system running 24/7, 365 with no human touching it. And as we all know, within many of our industries at the moment, we're really middle heavy. And a simple way to think about that point, and this has been made by many people a lot smarter than that, the real the impact of AI in general is the removal of middleware. If you think about manufacturing, inputs and outputs really aren't changing that much. What is going to change is the robots. That's the middle. Why is that not applicable across every sector of the industry, of the economy? That's how I think about AI and its impact. And we're just a little piece of it, focused on helping banks basically better manage their operations and better serve their customers and shareholders. Right? If you within the context of a bank, if I put on my investor hat, which is also important, right? Here we're talking about AI and the financial markets. You'll notice something very important in bank stocks. Most of them have what are known as efficiency ratios of 65%. That means basically it takes 65 cents to make a dollar. I don't think that's very good.
No.
But these are very smart people, and they are very hamstrung by regulation. Okay, so I'm not criticizing them. I'm saying that we've got to find a better way of doing things. The point I'm making here is if I'm the CEO of a bank and that has 65% efficiency ratio, my stock is most likely going to trade at 1 times book. Okay, that is not a very good valuation. You don't want to trade at 1 times book, and like sub 10 times earnings. You want to trade at a significant multiple of that. And the companies that have 25% efficiency ratios, banks, they trade at 7 times book. So something's really not being right. And by the way, those companies are true anomalies because there's only one of them. And you can't tell me that it's not possible, because it is being done. So the relevance of AI in banking in particular is this, what I call operational intelligence. It's in the middle. Can you run, for example, an entire loan program but without anybody really touching it. Think of it as somebody just monitoring it, right? And I'm not, and I don't really fall in. I don't look at the front end where you're talking to customers. Your online banking, your mobile app, your branches, et cetera, et cetera. Nor do I look at the back end ledger. Those are things that you can't. I don't particularly think that they require huge changing. I mean, some will argue that the back end core and ledger, they have to change immediately. I don't know. I think it's one of priorities. Do you go after the low hanging fruit, or do you go after the stuff that is going to give you a return, 10 years from now? I think you go after the low hanging fruit, obviously, which is data driven intelligence. And companies like Palantir have shown the world that there's this capability to plug into data, pull in that data, and create intelligence out of it. And that's what we do. And we can spin up our system. We can spin up our system in 3 months.
Yeah, what drives you?
I'm a workaholic. Yeah, I really enjoy doing things that are different and are meaningful and impactful. I'm constantly learning. That's really important. Every day I spend a lot of time studying, and I want to be an expert. I'll never be an expert, but I want to be an expert. And as I said earlier, I get bored very easily. So what drives me is I don't want to be bored. I'm really lucky. I've got a great family, and I really enjoy my work. I get up every morning, and I get pissed off if I am not feeling well to do my work. I had that happen on Monday. I had a migraine, and I was completely useless, and I was getting so irritated by it. But no, it's fun learning.
Yeah, for me, my goal is to be like the next Ted Turner of media. So I'm always like trying to learn as well. So what advice would you give anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur and follow similar footsteps?
Oh, I'm probably not. I'm not qualified to tell you about that. I think you got one of the best pieces of advice anybody ever gave me was follow your instincts. And I stand by that. I think it's important. The other thing is you just can't, I can't remember who said this, but dreaming without execution is a nightmare, right? And if you're going to dream and you think you can do something, you need to do it. That's this risk-taking mentality, right? And I'm a crazy risk taker. I like riding motorcycles to this day at 150 miles an hour and getting caught and, all that kind of stuff. Not getting caught, but the adrenaline rush of not getting caught is interesting to me. And it could be biological too, right? Like I don't, my endorphins probably don't kick in unless I'm under duress, right? So there's, you have to be a risk taker. You got to put it all on the line. You can't do it half-assed, right? You gotta have something real that you think and you believe in that has potential to have an impact. And then it's about the support system around you, your family, your health, your team. If you're able to pull all of that together, there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful at whatever you choose to be successful at. I really believe that. But I think all these entrepreneurs have, well, they have intellectual capacity. They have really fierce critical thinking. Um, they're really curious, and they're maniacally focused. And I think the risk-taking side of it is, it's not an easy journey. You're going to fail a lot, and you got to have the perseverance to get up and say, you know what? I walked down. I learned what I needed to learn from it. I'm moving forward. You know, our society is, whilst we have all these great entrepreneurs, you know, unfortunately, our education system in our society is not necessarily geared towards creating these entrepreneurs, because we're told to be part of the status quo right from the get-go. We're told to be rote learners. Entrepreneurs are not rote learners. In fact, I would argue most of them hate school. I know I did.
Yeah.
Because it was like, yeah, most of us also suffer from ADD or something like that. So we and we're not taught to be intellectually curious. We're you know, rote learning doesn't promote intellectual curiosity. I think iterative learning is where it comes from. People who don't like school are iterative learners. I don't want to simplify it too much, but I think if you analyzed all these entrepreneurs, you'll find these attributes. Oh, the other thing is the ability to improvise, because nothing goes in a straight line. You know, you just got to figure it out. We have a philosophy in the company that says nothing's impossible. We just haven't figured it out, and that's very important, I think.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like my wife says, I don't know how to fail.
That is a good skill to have, because there's things you could just give up anytime, and just going, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you know what that's like when you're starting something from scratch. You know,
Yeah.
you're having to build your reputation, your brand. Those are not easy things. You know, a lot of competition, a lot of naysayers. You know, you got to have a pretty thick skin.
So where do you see AI and technology in the next few years?
Oh, that, um, look, I think it's moving a lot faster than most people anticipate.
Hmm.
I'm not of the view that this is going to create massive job destruction. I am of the view that it will create massive productivity improvements that will be disinflationary, much like the internet was designed to do. Right, internet was changing. It changed the cost of sales. Right, if you think about it, we completely changed the model. This is that on steroids, right?
Yeah.
You know, we talk about the 65% efficiency ratio. Well, that's massive compared to the cost of selling, right? This operating mess that most corporations have. Look, companies are going to realize they could do more with this AI. They will then redistribute those resources to other areas where AI can't be too helpful, which is the human interaction part of it. Humans don't like dealing with bots, right? I mean,
Right.
so that human interaction, I don't think is going to go away. And humans are going to figure out that they need to retool, and they need to get better at leveraging the AI. Just the same way as when I go in to see a bank CEO, I'm saying, hey, I've got all of this AI toolkit, right, and capabilities. I want you to use it. They have to make the choice as to whether they want to be AI literate or not. Right? It applies to the human too, the individual. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic on humanity. So I don't subscribe to all the doom and gloom. I think ultimately, the fears are valid, and just like in markets, there comes a point where things break down. But like I said, I'm optimistic about humanity. As for the timelines, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to really understand the timelines. What I can tell you in my little universe, that we're not even in the first inning.
Yeah.
In financial services, I think there's a handful of people, but when I look at the broader industry, I mean, it's just not there. So, and you can say the same thing about most industries.
How can people reach out to you or your company and learn more?
Very simple. I mean, our site is very, very, very basic, because we don't like to talk too much about ourselves. But there is some information there. I mean, look, we're not. I'm taking a very different approach to how I want to generate revenue. I just don't like a SaaS model. I think it's very transactional. I think the future state of a lot of this AI is very partnership driven. And that means I value relationship more than some transaction and fees. Because as you can tell, I have an investor's perspective on relationships. I want to buy companies, buy into companies that are doing great things. And I chose to create this platform. And I would like to convince bank CEOs that this can really help them with their operational intelligence and therefore their valuation, right? Which is what their responsibility is. And I want to work with them. This is not a one and done. We don't have a sales force. Nor do I have any intention of hiring a bunch of salespeople, because they can't. This is not something that you just sell and forget. This is a relationship, because what I want to do is to make our bank partner super successful. Because if that was the case, then we would be successful. And so you can find us on our website, aliya.com. And listen, I'm always looking at my LinkedIn because it pops up, and listen, it doesn't have to be about Aliya. I'm always looking to learn. So if there's something that you might be interested in discussing, I would love to learn. I'm open to everything.